We have all encountered the person who leads with effortless charm, only to leave everyone around them feeling emotionally drained. Or the supportive friend who, after years of loyalty, suddenly prioritizes a minor personal gain over the entire relationship. These moments feel like anomalies, random acts of bad luck, or unpredictable shifts in personality. We tend to treat them as isolated incidents rather than symptoms of a larger system. However, these behaviors follow specific, recurring patterns. Human nature operates on a set of psychological laws that, once identified, make even the most erratic actions feel predictable. Walking into a room assuming that everyone is acting on pure, objective logic creates a state of constant vulnerability. It leaves the door open for those who understand these hidden dynamics to influence or deceive those who don't. Learning to decode these mechanics shifts the dynamic. Instead of reacting to surface-level behavior, you begin to see the biological and psychological forces driving every interaction. While we view our decisions as the result of careful reasoning, the human brain is built to prioritize emotion. Logic is often an afterthought, struggling to impose order on a mind that is naturally irrational. When we act on greed or anger, we rarely admit to being compromised. Instead, we perform a sort of mental gymnastics, rationalization, creating a logical-sounding excuse to justify a decision that was actually made by our impulses. This bias is reinforced by a baseline narcissism. Evolutionarily, we are wired to be the center of our own experience, which naturally causes us to view every event through the narrow lens of how it affects us personally. This self-centered perspective makes it difficult to see the world objectively. We become so preoccupied with our own standing and ego that the actual motives and needs of the people standing right in front of us remain invisible. Breaking this cycle involves creating a deliberate gap between an impulse and an action. By observing your own emotional surges with clinical detachment, you can prevent them from dictating your response. When you turn that same observational lens outward, you begin to see people as they are, rather than as you want them to be. This outward focus reveals the underlying insecurities and intentions that drive social power dynamics. This pressure to conform doesn't stop at the individual level. We are social animals, and the herd exerts a constant, heavy pull, often forcing us to trade our true preferences for the safety of group consensus. Survival within this hierarchy requires the use of masks. We learn to project the traits, confidence, humility, or competence that the current situation demands, regardless of how we actually feel inside. These performances are never perfect. The tension between the mask and the true internal state creates leaks, a micro-expression of contempt, a stiffness in the posture, or a tone of voice that doesn't match the optimism of the words. Viewing society as a stage provides a clearer perspective on these roles. You begin to recognize the script that others are following, which reduces the emotional weight of their social posturing. Effective navigation involves mastering these roles. You can adopt the necessary social mask to achieve a specific goal, while maintaining a firm grasp on the identity you keep hidden from the public eye. Not all social friction is overt. Some of the most persistent threats come from passive aggression and envy, forces that exist even within our closest professional and personal circles. Envy is rarely expressed directly. It manifests as a subtle undermining of your work, a lack of enthusiasm for your wins, or a quiet celebration of your setbacks, all hidden behind a veneer of friendship. Encountering these traits, in others or in our own reflection, often leads to a cycle of guilt or defensive anger. But these emotions are simply indicators of unfulfilled ambition or perceived threats. Aggression and envy are essentially raw psychological energy. While they can be destructive when left unmanaged, they can also be redirected. Those who understand this redirection use the sting of being envied or the heat of their own competitive drives as fuel. They channel that pressure into concrete improvements in their own skill and standing. The most pervasive driver of human behavior is the instinct to look away from our own mortality. We live as if time is an infinite resource, which warps our perspective on everything else. This denial creates a lack of urgency. When we act as if we have forever, We allow ourselves to get bogged down in trivial arguments, superficial social status, and the slow drain of procrastination. Acknowledging that time is finite changes the stakes. When you stop treating death as a distant abstraction and start viewing it as an inevitable deadline, the trivialities of daily life lose their power over you. The realization that our time is limited makes the energy spent on petty jealousies and social masks feel increasingly wasteful. The perspective of a finite life forces a natural prioritization of meaningful action over reactive behavior. Understanding the laws of human nature provides a map for the time you have left. It allows for a more patient view of others' flaws and a more disciplined control over your own, moving you toward a life dictated by your own choices rather than your instincts.